My name is Anna, and I'd like to share the twists and turns of my life's journey. It began in a world of privilege, where I was the adored only child of wealthy parents. My father, Richard, was a prosperous businessman, and my mother, Catherine, was a well-known socialite, famous for hosting the most lavish events in the city. They made sure I wanted for nothing, surrounding me with love and care. When I entered college, my main goal was to make my parents proud, and I devoted myself entirely to my studies. This was when Daniel entered my life. His persistence was unmistakable. He would wait for me after classes, bring me coffee during my late-night study sessions, and show up unexpectedly at our home. One day in our living room, he boldly told my parents, "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I love your daughter deeply and have serious intentions." My father, seeing in Daniel the son he had always wanted, quickly warmed to him. He even suggested I consider dating him, believing he could be a great match. Though hesitant, I agreed. To my surprise, Daniel's charm and thoughtfulness won me over. Our relationship blossomed, and shortly after graduation, we married. My parents, especially my father, were overjoyed, seeing Daniel as the son he had always dreamed of. At our wedding reception, my father warmly welcomed Daniel into the family, then helped him establish his own business, a modern car wash, and assisted us in buying our first home. A year after our wedding, we were blessed with a son, Liam. Holding him for the first time opened a floodgate of love in my heart. I threw myself into motherhood, embracing every moment of parenting as Liam grew from a playful toddler to an energetic child and eventually a reflective teenager. Meanwhile, Daniel's car wash business struggled. He often felt overshadowed by my father's success and grew resentful. His frustration turned inward and he often lashed out, feeling that my father's help was more of a hindrance than a blessing. Despite my attempts to support him, our home became filled with tension and arguments, and I found myself walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. Liam, sensing the unrest, withdrew into himself, spending more time alone or with friends. As the years passed, the demands of stress and motherhood began to take their toll on me. I was no longer the slim college student Daniel had fallen for. He remarked on my changed appearance, criticizing me for letting myself go. Though hurt by his words, I reassured myself that he was merely stressed and didn't mean them. Yet, in facing these challenges, I came to understand the importance of finding strength within and recognizing my own worth, no matter what obstacles life placed before me. As I navigated the tempestuous waters of my life, it became painfully clear that the foundations of my marriage to Daniel were crumbling. Then, one sunny Tuesday that seemed like any other, I received a devastating phone call. A somber voice informed me, "Mrs. Thompson, I regret to inform you that your parents have been involved in a small plane crash in Florida. I'm sorry, but they didn't survive." The following weeks were a blur of funeral arrangements and settling estates, a process made even more challenging by Daniel's startling absence. When Daniel was present, his demeanor was unsettlingly upbeat. Just a week after the funeral, he began pressing me about the inheritance. "Have you talked to the lawyer yet? We need to sort this out," he urged, his tone shockingly indifferent to my grief. I was taken aback by his insensitivity. "Daniel, can't this wait?" "I'm still grieving," I said, to which he replied bluntly, "Business doesn't wait, Anna. We need to know where we stand financially." With a heavy heart, I scheduled a meeting with Mr. Thompson, our family lawyer. In Mr. Thompson's elegantly appointed office, the atmosphere was tense. He began, "Mrs. Thompson, your parents' will is quite unique. It's split into two parts, and I can only disclose the first part now. The second will be revealed in exactly 1 year." Daniel leaned in eagerly as Mr. Thompson continued, "The mansion is left to your future grandchildren, with their guardians acting as trustees until they come of age." I was dumbfounded. Liam, our only son, wasn't even married. Liam, who had insisted on attending, reacted with a surprising, "Well, that opens up some interesting possibilities." His casual remark puzzled me, but before I could question him, Daniel interjected angrily, "That's it?" What about the rest? The businesses? The money? Mr. Thompson firmly replied, "The rest will be revealed next year." As we left the office, the dynamics between us had palpably shifted. Daniel was unusually silent, and Liam appeared contemplative. Not long after the will's initial reading, Liam made a startling announcement at dinner. "Mom, Dad, there's someone I want you to meet." The following day, he introduced us to Olivia, a pretty young woman with a guarded smile. "This is my wife, and she's pregnant with our child," he declared. I was stunned. Wife? Pregnant? How had this all happened so quickly? Liam explained they had married hastily upon learning of the pregnancy. I glanced at Daniel, who seemed oddly pleased, nodding in approval. Something felt unsettling about the situation, but I shelved my doubts, focusing instead on the fact that I was about to become a grandmother. "Congratulations," I managed to say, mustering enthusiasm. Olivia's smile widened. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I'm so excited to be part of your family." Olivia moved in soon after, citing the need for family support during her pregnancy. Initially, I was thrilled to have another woman in the house, but as time passed, the household dynamics shifted dramatically. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this sudden marriage than met the eye. Yet, amidst the chaos and secrets, I found a new role awaiting me, one that promised a different kind of love and connection. It soon became clear that Olivia had her plans, which involved undermining me subtly. Whenever I cooked, she'd grimace and make comments suggesting I was doing it wrong. Her interactions with Daniel were even more alarming. She would laugh at his jokes, touch his arm, and shower him with compliments praising his business acumen. Daniel predictably enjoyed the attention and started spending more time at home, but not with me. He would discuss business with her for hours, while I felt pushed aside. I tried discussing Olivia's behavior with Liam, but he dismissed my concerns, suggesting I was just jealous because I wasn't the center of attention anymore. His words stung deeply, and it pained me to think that my son was so dismissive of my feelings. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed to thrive in this new family dynamic, clearly enjoying praise and looking at me with something that felt like contempt. One day, while grocery shopping, I ran into Alice, a former college friend. We sat down for coffee, and as we caught up, she brought up a memory that sent a chill down my spine. She recalled a guy from our college days who had a reputation for chasing wealthy women, a guy named Daniel. My heart began to race as she described him as the type who would eventually marry a naive, rich girl. The more she spoke, the clearer it became. She was talking about my Daniel. My stomach churned as I drove home, realizing that our marriage might have been nothing but a lie. When I returned home, I found Daniel in his study and wasted no time confronting him with the truth I had uncovered. At first, he tried to downplay it, brushing me off with his usual arrogance. But the brief flash of fear that crossed his face betrayed him. When I pressed harder, he finally admitted it with a cold laugh. He had married me for my family's wealth and had never loved me. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. He went on to call me a burden, and with a hint of regret, confessed that he had stayed with me only for financial gain. The revelation shook me to my core, forcing me to confront the harsh reality of our marriage and the life I had spent years building. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place as Daniel, with chilling clarity, revealed his true intentions. He no longer needed me now that my parents were gone, and their wealth would soon be his, supposedly for our grandson, but in truth, for his own benefit. It all made sense. Liam's hasty wedding, Olivia's pregnancy, and their cruel disregard for me. It was all part of a meticulously orchestrated plan to inherit my family's fortune. "You planned all this?" I asked, my voice trembling with disbelief. Daniel's laugh echoed off the walls, sharp and bitter. "Give credit where it's due. It was mostly Liam's idea. The boy's got a good head for business," he bragged, a stark contrast to the way he had always belittled my intelligence. The weight of their betrayal felt suffocating. "Does Olivia know?" I asked, already dreading his response. "Of course she does. Daniel sneered. She's no fool. She knows a good opportunity when she sees one. She'll make a fine wife for a businessman. Unable to bear it any longer, I fled the room, my world crumbling around me. The reality hit hard. I had nowhere to go, no money of my own, not even enough to rent a small apartment. With a heavy heart, I resigned myself to staying in a house full of people I no longer trusted. 3 months later, Daniel delivered another shock without warning. "Pack your bags, Anna," he said as he walked into the kitchen. "We're moving into your parents' house." The news nearly caused me to drop the knife I was holding. "When did we decide this?" I asked, though his mocking laugh made it clear that I had no say in the matter. "We didn't decide it. I did. We're moving in with Liam and Olivia. After all, our grandson is the heir to that house." Each word stung like a slap in the face. "What about our house?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Oh, that," Daniel dismissed with a wave. "I sold it. The money's already spent on things for people I care about, and you're not on that list." In the days that followed, I watched in painful silence as Daniel, Liam, and Olivia eagerly made preparations for the move. They splurged on new cars, lavish clothes, and gadgets, while I was left in the shadows, forgotten, weary, and neglected. Moving to my parents' house felt like a cruel twist of fate. Olivia wasted no time claiming the master bedroom, leaving me with a small, inconspicuous guest room tucked away at the back of the house. As the weeks passed, my sense of isolation grew stronger. Olivia had her baby and quickly transformed the house into her domain, with me cast in the role of an unwilling servant. "Anna, the baby needs a diaper change," she'd call, "and the living room is a mess. Could you tidy it up?" Despite the hurt, I found some small solace in caring for my grandson, his innocent smile offering a bittersweet comfort in the midst of my misery. But one evening, about a month after moving in, I reached my breaking point. At dinner, which I had prepared, Olivia became especially demanding. "Anna, bring me more water and hurry up with clearing the dishes," she commanded. Something inside me snapped. Years of frustration, hurt, and resentment erupted all at once. "Enough!" I shouted, slamming my hands onto the table. "I am not your servant, Olivia. This is my parents' house, and I deserve some respect." The room fell silent as Olivia's expression crumbled, unable to respond to my sudden outburst. But she quickly erupted into dramatic tears, accusing me of being ungrateful after all they had supposedly done for me. Daniel, his face red with anger, declared he had had enough of my so-called ingratitude. "Pack your things and leave. This house is for our grandson now, and you're no longer welcome here," he said, his voice cold and final. I was in shock, hardly believing his words. "You can't be serious. Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, my voice trembling with desperation. Without a hint of remorse, Daniel pulled out a stack of papers from his pocket. "I've been waiting for the right moment to give you these," he said, handing me divorce papers already signed. "I want you gone by morning." Desperation flooded me as I turned to Liam, hoping for some sign of support, but he merely shrugged, refusing to meet my eyes. "I'm an adult now, Mom. I don't need you anymore." With shaking hands, I took the papers. As I walked out of the dining room, the last thing I saw was Olivia's smug, satisfied smirk. My world shattered around me, and I felt utterly alone. With no place to turn and a heavy heart, I dialed a familiar number. Alice, my old college friend, answered without hesitation, her voice laced with concern. When I explained that I needed a place to stay, she immediately offered her guest room. As I settled in, Alice shared her own troubles. Her son was struggling after his fiancée, who was pregnant, had left him. Curious, I asked to see a picture of the woman. When Alice showed me the photo, my heart stopped. Staring back at me was Olivia, the very woman who had brought me so much pain. "Alice," I said slowly, "I think I know where your son's fiancée is." Over cups of tea, I recounted my entire ordeal. Alice's face shifted from shock to anger and then to a firm resolve. "We need to expose them," she said with determination. Together, we came up with a plan. The next day, I returned to my parents' house under the guise of collecting my belongings. While there, I managed to obtain a few strands of my grandson's hair for a DNA test. The wait for the results was unbearable, but when they finally came, they confirmed our suspicions. Alice's son, not Liam, was the father of Olivia's baby. As I was pondering how to reveal this to Liam and Daniel, I received a call from Mr. Thompson, my parents' lawyer. He asked me to review the second part of my parents' will in his office the next day. I listened, heart pounding as he unveiled the contents. "To our beloved daughter, Anna," he read, "we leave our luxury apartment, valued at $610,000. But there was more. In the event of a divorce, all their property, including the business Daniel was involved in, would revert to me. It turned out my father had been the silent financier of Daniel's business, and he had cleverly registered everything in his name. As Mr. Thompson explained, I was overwhelmed with emotion. All this time, I had thought I had nothing, but in reality, I had everything. When I inquired about the house Daniel had sold, Mr. Thompson reassured me, "That's the only thing Daniel can claim. Everything else is yours." As the reality of my newfound situation sank in, I couldn't help but laugh. Daniel had thought he was being clever, but in the end, his plans had unraveled spectacularly. But ultimately, Daniel had only outsmarted himself. When I first stepped into my new apartment, I was taken aback by its beauty. The place was a panorama of sleek lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, and elegant furnishings that radiated modern sophistication. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly at peace in what felt like a sanctuary. As I was admiring my new home, my phone rang. It was Liam. "Mom," he began urgently, "it's been a year since we read the first part of the will. We need to know what's in the second part." His tone was demanding, entitled even. "I'm sure Grandma and Grandpa left everything to me, right?" His assumption made me inwardly smirk. "Liam, this isn't a conversation for the phone. Why don't you, Olivia, and your father come over tomorrow? I'll text you the address," I said calmly, then hung up. Immediately after, I called Alice. "It's time," I told her. "Can you come over tomorrow morning? We're going to settle this once and for all." The next day, I heard the doorbell ring and took a deep breath before opening the door. Daniel, Liam, Olivia, and the baby stood there, mouths agape as they took in the opulence of my apartment. Liam whistled in admiration. "Wow, Mom, this place is amazing. I can't wait to move in." Olivia's eyes sparkled with avarice as she remarked, "Yes, it'll be so nice once we change all this old lady decor, and of course once we get rid of you, Anna." I raised an eyebrow at her audacity. "I wouldn't be so hasty if I were you," I replied, inviting them to sit on the plush sofa. I excused myself briefly, and when I returned, Alice was with me, her presence causing Olivia to visibly pale. "Before we discuss the will," I began, my voice steady, "there's someone I'd like you all to meet. This is my friend, Alice." Olivia's eyes darted around, seeking an escape, while Liam and Daniel looked merely confused. "Now," I continued, "I think it's time we had a frank discussion. There are some truths that need to be revealed." I savored the moment, having rehearsed my words all night. The revelations I was about to unveil would change everything. As I faced those who had betrayed me, my ex-husband, my son, and the woman who had almost usurped my place, I felt a surge of righteous indignation. Alice stepped closer, and Daniel recognized her, his face twisting into a bitter smirk. "Well, well," he sneered. "Looks like I achieved my goal after all. Married a rich fool, didn't I?" His words stung, but I remained composed. "We'll address your betrayal later, Daniel. Right now, there's something more pressing." I turned to Olivia, who squirmed under the scrutiny. "We know the truth about you, Olivia." "Liam," I said, turning to my son, whose face was a mask of confusion. "When Olivia heard about the will from you, she saw an opportunity. She decided to pass off someone else's child as your own to secure your grandparents' estate." Alice's voice was steady as she delivered the final blow. "The baby isn't Liam's, it's my son's child." The room fell deathly silent. I then presented the DNA test results. As the truth sank in, Olivia's face lost all color. In a sudden flurry, she grabbed her bag. "I don't need this. I don't need a beggar's child," she declared, storming out of the apartment. Liam stood shell-shocked, the baby still in his arms, looking utterly lost. Daniel, recovering from his initial shock, asked in a small voice, "So, who gets this apartment?" I smiled, ready to enlighten him. "Well, Daniel, let me tell you about the second part of my parents' will," I explained, as I detailed the specifics of the inheritance, the apartment, the car, all of it. Daniel's face fell further with each revelation. Suddenly, he was on his knees. "Anna, please, I'm sorry. Forgive me." His plea barely registered as I considered all that had transpired, the weight of their deceit still lingering but now tempered by the justice of their unraveling plans. I could feel the tension in the air as I looked at him, my voice cold and unwavering. "Get out, Daniel. You have 2 days to leave my parents' house, or I'll call the police." Daniel scrambled to his feet, a look of desperation flashing across his face. He turned to Liam and said, "At least give me the car I bought you. I need something." Liam's response was quick and firm. "No, it's mine. You're not getting anything from me." With one last look of frustration, Daniel slunk out of the apartment, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I turned to Liam, who stood there, his head lowered in shame. Alice, standing beside us, gently took the baby from his arms. I spoke to Liam with a tone that was firm, yet not unkind. "Since it turns out I don't have any grandchildren, and there are no other heirs to your grandparents' house besides me, I need you to move out as well." Liam didn't meet my eyes as he nodded. "I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. I'll go pack my things." Without another word, he too left the apartment. As the door clicked shut behind him, a heavy silence descended upon the room. The only sound that remained was the gentle cooing of the baby in Alice's arms. I turned to my old friend, a swirl of emotion stirring within me. Relief, sadness, and an unexpected sense of liberation. "Well," I said with a small, weary smile, "that certainly didn't go the way I imagined when I woke up this morning." Alice gave a soft nod, cradling the baby and bouncing him lightly. "You did what you had to, Anna. They gave you no other option." I sank into the plush sofa, my thoughts racing as a realization struck me. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Free from deceit, free from manipulation, and finally able to live life on my own terms. The months that followed that pivotal confrontation were filled with change and self-discovery. I settled into my luxurious new apartment, a space that became my refuge, a quiet haven where I could begin again. One of my first decisions was to rent out my parents' house. It felt right to let a young family move in, people who would cherish the home's history and warmth. The rental income, alongside the money from selling Daniel's car wash business, provided a comfortable cushion. My friendship with Alice grew stronger during this time. We spent hours over coffee, swapping stories and offering each other support through the ups and downs of our transformed lives. And then there was baby Noah, Alice's grandson, the child I had once thought was mine. Despite the painful circumstances of his birth, I found myself growing more attached to him each day. "He has your eyes," Alice would tease, and we would laugh, finding some lightness in the tangled paths our lives had taken. As for Liam, our relationship was a slow and delicate process of healing. His betrayal had cut deeply, but he was still my son, and the bond between us couldn't be completely severed. Our interactions were awkward at first, tentative phone calls and uncomfortable meetings in neutral places, but gradually, painfully, we began to rebuild what had been broken. Daniel, however, had become nothing more than a distant figure from my past. I heard that his grand aspirations of wealth and status had fallen apart, all because of his exposed lies. I saw him only once by chance as I drove through town. He was working at a small kiosk, looking older and more worn than I remembered. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I felt a flicker of something. Neither love nor longing, just a sense of finality. The light changed and I drove on, leaving that chapter of my life behind for good. And so, life moved forward. Each day I felt more at peace, finally free from the chaos that had once defined me, embracing the new life I had fought so hard to create.